22 shocking moments, 7 levels. From being betrayed by a friend who leaves you alone to die, to an action scene that got banned across multiple countries. These are some of the most disturbing and controversial moments in video games. As we move deeper into the iceberg, you'll be shocked at how unhinged some gaming plots can be. Let's start at the tip of the iceberg. Level 1. Betrayal Scene, Dead Space. In the sci-fi horror game Dead Space, Kendra Daniels emerged as one of the most shocking antagonists in video game history. Throughout the game, she appeared to be a computer specialist working alongside protagonist Isaac Clarke. However, everything was not how it seemed. Kendra and Isaac were sent as part of a team to the spaceship Ishimura to investigate its communications blackout. To their horror, the crew found that the Ishimura had been overrun by necromorphs. This alien infestation mutates dead bodies and was directly caused by the Marker, an alien artifact. In a devastating twist, Kendra is revealed to be an undercover EarthGov agent with a secret mission to retrieve the mysterious Marker. Her true colors were exposed in the game's climactic moments when she betrays Isaac and steals the Marker. To put the final nail in the coffin, she then escapes in the only remaining shuttle. With no way to return home, Isaac is left behind as the sole human survivor. Just the thought of being all alone on a planet with no one else except a bunch of undead corpses and hostile aliens is spine-chilling. The rest of the game then follows Isaac trying to survive on a dying ship. Kendra's betrayal is particularly gut-wrenching because players have been led to believe she was an ally. Consumed by the Marker's power, Kendra ruthlessly betrayed her friends and cast aside her loyalty without hesitation. Before she escapes, she shoots and kills their colleague Dr. Kynes, demonstrating her chilling willingness to sacrifice others to achieve her goals. Players were completely blindsided by this plot twist. Kendra's betrayal felt like an emotional gut punch. They saw Kendra's motives as manipulative, as she abandoned Isaac as soon as he wasn't useful to her anymore, leaving him and the player devastated. The Origami Killer, Heavy Rain. While investigating a series of in Heavy Rain, players are slapped with a shocking twist when the Origami Killer is revealed to be one of the lead investigators, Scott Shelby. It all began when children's dead bodies were found dumped in public places, causing mass hysteria. Someone was not only killing these kids, but executing it all in a disturbingly methodical manner. The perpetrator would kidnap young boys and then contact their fathers, asking them to go through a number of trials in order to save their sons. The catch is, even if the fathers do accomplish their tasks, they still cannot save their kids. All these details hinted at how the person isn't simply a murderer, but a psychological murderer. Once the player finds out it was Shelby all along, it's hard to reconcile the compassionate investigator they had grown to trust with the horrifying reality of who he truly is. Later on, Shelby's sadistic motivations are shown to stem from a complex psychological background related to his own childhood traumas. Throughout the game, he builds trust by investigating the cases and helping victims' families, only to reveal he's actually the serial killer they've been hunting all along. And so, once the chilling twist is revealed, it destroys that trust built up throughout the narrative. At that moment, you begin to question each character's true motives. The reveal also drew backlash, with critics finding it controversial. They felt that the twist was problematic and didn't make any sense, as it essentially lied to players. The moment becomes particularly unsettling because as a player, you unknowingly control the killer throughout the game. So when Scott's identity is revealed, it almost makes it seem like you've been the monster all along. Moreover, the fact that a man like Scott, who seemed so unremarkable, could be capable of such horrors raised a chilling question. Are the people in our lives truly as they seem? Level 2. The Reaper Leviathan, Subnautica. For Subnautica fans, the Reaper Leviathan's sudden and terrifying appearance is often the game's most unforgettable moment. After being trapped on an alien ocean planet, you must brave its hostile environment and otherworldly predators. However, among them, the Reaper Leviathan remains the most intimidating of all. As you navigate on this planet, the constant fear of the Leviathan keeps you on the edge of your seat. You can almost feel something watching your every move in the shadows. If you notice slight movement in the dark or hear a distant shriek, that is your cue to drive away as fast as you can. However, chances are it's already too late. Despite its enormous serpentine body, it emerges with incredible speed, emitting a bone-chilling roar that signals your imminent doom. Once the Leviathan has tracked you, it will grab your vehicle with its mandibles, crushing it. The screen shakes violently, creating pure panic. If you're in a sea moth, you'll likely be destroyed instantly. In a prawn suit, you might survive, but you'll be violently thrown around. Moreover, the shock of looking at something so horrendous isn't going to leave you anytime soon. The Reaper Leviathan is still considered a cult favorite in the gaming world, with many players posting their reaction videos. For some, the monster proves to be such a huge symbol of terror that it triggered their deep-seated ocean phobias. General Shepard, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. General Shepard's betrayal is still considered one of the most shocking moments in the Call of Duty franchise. In Modern Warfare, we're introduced to Roach and Ghost, considered as two of the coolest characters in the franchise. With their brotherhood-like relationship, these two quickly became likable within the gaming community. In a mission called Loose Ends, Roach and Ghost successfully retrieve critical intel. Until that point, General Shepard, the leader of Task Force 141, has been actively working with them. As they're both escaping, Shepard arrives in a helicopter, seemingly there to help. However, this is where everything goes wrong. As Roach and Ghost get to the helicopter, Shepard takes the intel and congratulates them. He then extends his hand, presumably to help Roach get on the heli, but then, without warning, Shepard takes out his gun and shoots him at point-blank range. We hear Ghost yell, "No!" a split second before he is shot down as well. Shepard then takes the intel and burns the bodies, giving players the shock of their lives. The moment is considered as one of the most disturbing moments, not only because our beloved players are betrayed, but also because of their cold-blooded murder. As Roach takes his last breath, we can see Shepard from his perspective, throwing his cigarette and lighting the bodies on fire. The twist is so gut-wrenching and brutal that it fundamentally changes the narrative of the game. From that point onwards, Captain Price and Soap go on to seek revenge against Shepard. Crucifixion Scene, Outlast 2. Few games dare to confront religious extremism so brutally and unapologetically as Outlast 2. In 2017, the game attracted a lot of backlash for its most controversial plot point, the crucifixion of its lead character. Earning both critical acclaim as well as controversy, Outlast 2 is remembered for its portrayal of religious horror. With its horrifically graphic crucifixion scene, the game sparked intense criticism. The game follows Blake Langerman, who, along with his wife, is trapped in a remote area after their plane crash. After Blake is separated from his wife, he ends up being captured by members of a fanatical religious cult referred to as the Scald. Deformed by a parasitic infection, these fanatics believe that Blake is their prophesied Messiah. After forcing Drake to drink blood, he's dragged to a cross where he is crucified. The entire sequence is filled with gore. You can hear Blake begging for mercy while the heretics drive nails into his hands and feet, declaring they will feast on his flesh.
Don't do this! Please!
As Blake screams in terror and agony, it becomes harder to watch. The 2-minute sequence of him being slowly nailed to the cross shocked many. It also triggered a lot of religious commentary. Some players felt the game unfairly mocked Christianity, while others saw it as an exploration of religious abuse. Level 3. The God Fetus, Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 redefined extreme in gaming by taking gore to a whole new level. In a horrific birthing sequence, Heather is forced to puke out a bloody fetus that is both shocking and repulsive. Our main character, Heather, is shown to be the reincarnation of Alessa from the first Silent Hill. Unknowingly, she carries a supernatural god fetus which was implanted by a religious cult. The purpose of this insanity was for Heather to birth God. Throughout the game, we see our antagonist Claudia manipulating Heather, trying to trigger the divine birth. During a critical moment in the narrative, Heather vomits out a bloody fetus after taking an anti-demonic pill. As she doubles over, her body turns an intense, blood-like red color. In a few seconds, we see a distorted and misshapen creature falling to the ground. As she then attempts to crush the creature under her boot, Claudia, in a fit of desperation, shoves Heather aside and devours the fetus herself. Turning and twisting, she then mutates into a monstrous entity, a physical manifestation of their twisted god. The entire sequence is grotesque and nauseating to say the least, but the moment represents more than just shock value. It's deeply tied to the game's narrative about religious fanaticism. The cult's attempt to use Heather as an unwilling vessel exposes how fanatics can exploit women in the name of religion. By restricting their autonomy, religious extremists deny women the fundamental right to make decisions regarding their own bodies. And so, this infamous moment powerfully symbolizes a woman reclaiming her body from cult exploitation. Attack of the Saints. Hitman Absolution. The Attack of the Saints and Hitman Absolution was a highly controversial trailer that sparked debate in the gaming community. It depicts Agent 47 brutally fighting and killing a group of female assassins dressed as nuns. The scene features 8 women dressed provocatively in nun-like costumes. These female assassins in rubber catsuits are out to hunt Agent 47. With their tattoos and aggressive posturing, they march towards us, ready to strike. Meanwhile, we see Agent 47 patching up his wounds, shirtless, presenting a hyper-masculine male figure. Immediately after its release, the trailer received a strong reaction from critics and players. The controversy centered on multiple issues. Many thought the trailer was sexist and provocative as it became a portrayal of women. The portrayal was also criticized because it reduced these characters to objects whose purpose is to be violently killed. The concept presents a male power fantasy that and then eliminates female characters in the most cruel way. Some media outlets went as far as to call it a shameless piece of sexist tat. The game developers were taken aback by the response as they didn't expect such a huge backlash. Game director Tor Blystad later apologized, stating it was never the intention to offend people. Elizabeth's Lobotomy. BioShock Infinite, Burial at Sea, Episode 2, 2014. When BioShock Infinite set itself apart with its ambitious storytelling, there is one particular moment that is not for the faint of heart. During the scene, Elizabeth is almost lobotomized by Atlas, who turns her into revealing information. The transorbital lobotomy would essentially strip Elizabeth of her memories and free will, a fate worse than death. As she is strapped to a chair, helpless, Atlas prepares for the horrifying procedure. The player watches with bated breath as he moves an orbitoclast across her eyeball and starts hammering at her skull. The scene is presented in a first-person perspective, making you experience the threat of violence directly. So when Elizabeth is being put through hell, it feels like it's you who is being hit on the head. With every strike, you can imagine her pain and agony. The scene gets more brutal as Atlas wheels in a little girl and threatens to lobotomize her so that Elizabeth will cooperate. Putting his ice pick on her eyes, he's ready to make the blow any time as the girl screams for help. This is considered one of the most horrific moments in the BioShock series. Some described it as the most disturbing scene they've experienced in a video game. The scene ends with Elizabeth deciding to sacrifice herself for the little girl. Coupled with the mental anguish, this makes the entire narrative extremely traumatic. The Hive section, Duke Nukem Forever. When Duke Nukem Forever finally came out in 2011, it was criticized heavily for its outdated design. Shocker. But one problem that stood out was the blatant misogyny, which is manifested in its humor and plot. One such example is the Hive section in the game, which repulsed players and critics alike. The infamous level is notorious for its graphic and violent imagery. The Hive is an alien structure that shows captured women in a horrific condition. These women are being forcibly impregnated by alien creatures as a reproductive strategy. Restrained and visibly distressed, they serve as unwilling hosts for alien offspring. Trapped and unable to escape, the women are reduced to breeding vessels, which is painful to look at. We can see them tied up, semi-naked, and weeping in agony. There is a strong implication that they are being assaulted. The scene also shows them in various stages of alien pregnancy, a horrifying sight. To make matters worse, Duke's character makes callous jokes during the sequence. As the Duke encounters these women dying from alien impregnation, he remarks, "Looks like you're f***ed." Critics and players found the level deeply offensive. Many pointed out that the jokes were tasteless and misogynistic. Duke's reaction during such a traumatic scene is unhinged, to say the least. It not only reflected his poor character, but it also reflected badly on the developers. It showed that the makers found helpless women funny. Players recall shivering in disgust as Duke makes this nauseating joke. The treatment of women as objects instead of complex characters also glorified macho behavior. This toxic masculinity played a massive role in alienating modern gamers. Fans were repulsed by how women's suffering was used as a comedic relief. But hopefully you're not repulsed by us, and if you're enjoying this video so far, why not consider subscribing? Level 4. Pyramid Heads Attack, Silent Hill 2. In Silent Hill 2, a deeply violent scene unfolds where Pyramid Head assaults two mannequins while James watches. This moment is not only troubling because of what it portrays, but also because of what it represents. After his wife became terminally ill, James smothered her with a pillow as he was overwhelmed by her deteriorating condition. Cut to a few years later, and we see James visiting Silent Hill to look for his dead wife. This supernatural place transforms people's deepest psychological traumas into a living nightmare. Even though James repressed the horrible memory of what he did, he is consumed by guilt. His desire to be punished has become so strong that he creates a psychological hellscape where he is forced to confront his actions. One of his manifestations is the Pyramid Head, a projection of his psyche, a figure of his inner torment. This humanoid has a massive inverted triangular metal helmet hiding his face. He embodies raw, brutal punishment and psychological terror through his inhuman, silent presence. In the infamous scene, James is startled when a mannequin is violently thrown into his room. Squirming and twisting, the mannequin seems to be in pain. Before James reacts, he spots Pyramid Head in the adjacent room, being physically violent with the other mannequin. It's a brutal visual of the mannequin resisting as Pyramid Head forces him on it. Immediately, James recoils and hides in a cupboard. But the scene is about more than its visuals. Pyramid Head's design, with phallic imagery, symbolizes James's abandonment and his self-loathing. It pushes boundaries of what was considered acceptable in the gaming world. Players felt uneasy as it magnified the game's inherently disturbing atmosphere. Staircase Scene, Outlast 2. Outlast 2 deals with deeply disturbing content centered around Blake's childhood trauma. Its famous staircase scene is a pivotal moment in the game's backstory that shows the of a little girl, Jessica. Jessica was Blake's classmate in Catholic school who died in a brutal accident. The impact of her death was the hardest on Blake because he was the one who found her. In a flashback, we see it all visually play out from Blake's perspective. When he discovers her bloody body, he looks up the staircase to see a shadowy figure. He then runs back through the corridor, its walls streaked with bloody patterns presenting a haunting visual. The details surrounding Jessica's death are not clear. Some say she was abused by her teacher, who then pushed her down, killing her. Others believe that the teacher forced Jessica to kill herself to cover up his own tracks. The game presents this memory as a fragmented scene that Blake struggles to process. This traumatic event later becomes a foundational psychological trigger for Blake's hallucinations. The scene was universally considered disturbing by players because of its sensitive nature. Its themes of child abuse and unaliving can be a triggering experience for victims of abuse. Some reported that watching this scene brought up buried memories for them. Other critics argue that the game used these traumatic experiences in a superficial way. Instead of exploring them in a meaningful way, they were used as a means to be scary, which was problematic. The staircase memory is brutal not just as a backstory, but also because of what it means for Blake. His entire life is shaped by his childhood experiences. Witnessing his friend's death in such a horrifying manner left Blake scarred for life. As you move forward in the game, you feel for his character because of all that he has been through. Amputation Scene, Resident Evil 7. In Resident Evil 7, there is a shocking moment that captures the game's raw horror. When Ethan goes to the Baker farm to find his wife, he ends up with a chopped hand in the most horrific way possible. Ethan's wife, Mia, has been missing for 3 years. Unknown to Ethan, she's infected by a mold that makes her deranged. When he finally locates Mia, things get gruesome pretty fast. Mia seems delirious and aggressive. As Ethan attempts to calm her, she suddenly attacks him with superhuman strength. At one point, she pins him to the wall by stabbing a screwdriver through his left hand. While Ethan desperately struggles to get the screwdriver out, Mia comes out with a chainsaw. Everything about this scene is jarring. Mia's slow walk towards Ethan as if she knows her prey is trapped and cannot run, and Ethan's excruciating scream as she severs his hand. Through the metallic screech, we can almost imagine the bone being sawed off, blood splattered on the screen, making it all seem a bit too real. Meanwhile, Mia's maniacal laughter with her distorted face is a haunting image you'll want to forget at once. As Ethan is thrown to the ground, he clutches his arm, trying to stop the blood gushing out. This alone can make you feel extremely queasy, especially if you cannot stand the sight of blood. The graphic nature of this scene creates a visceral horror that is more impactful than many jump scares. Mia's sudden transformation from a helpless character to a terrifying aggressor was also a shocking twist for fans. Moreover, players described the chainsaw scene as psychologically intense, as they didn't expect this level of gore without any warning. The Man in Yellow. I have no mouth and I must scream. 1995. In a post-apocalyptic world, AM, a sentient supercomputer, has wiped out humanity except for 5 survivors. For his own sadistic amusement, he plays mind games with them, forcing each to confront their deepest traumas and moral failures. As a player, you have to help these survivors overcome their personal demons. One of these survivors is Ellen, and The Man in Yellow refers to a deeply disturbing scene from her narrative segment. When Ellen worked as an engineer in the past, she was physically violated in an elevator by a man in a yellow jumpsuit. Ever since then, she's developed a phobia of the color yellow. Her fear is directly linked to her traumatic experience, which is ultimately used against her. Her segment reaches its climax when Ellen again finds herself trapped in the cold, metallic confines of an elevator that seems terribly familiar. And then her worst fear comes true. The Man in Yellow materializes in front of her. The same maintenance man that her years ago is now in front of her, more real than anything else. This is a nightmare orchestrated by AM, but for Ellen, it's no dream, as in that moment, the ghost of her deepest trauma has come alive. All AM gets from this is satisfaction. By expressing its rage and hatred, it intends to take revenge against humanity. The mere idea of something like this is horrifying, especially with the rise of AI and it gaining more consciousness day by day. We've watched enough sci-fi movies to know that the likelihood of being tormented by a computer doesn't seem crazy anymore. Apart from its dystopian aspect, this scene is pretty disturbing because of its sensitive topic, which can be triggering for victims of assault. The idea of making a survivor relive their traumatic memories is something extremely sadistic. Even though Ellen overpowers her, players were still left shaken. They thought the game's approach to trauma was bold and felt deeply unsettled by its emotional intensity. For many, it was a moment that stayed with them even years later. Level 5. No Russian. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. In Modern Warfare 2, there's a level where you get to play as an undercover CIA agent, Alan. The mission starts as a standard espionage, where you have to infiltrate Makarov's group and gather intelligence. Then, the unthinkable happens. As part of the group, you have to participate in a civilian murder, a moment that sparked global outrage. The mission takes place in Zakhev International Airport, where you are a part of a team carrying out a mass shooting. As you enter the airport, the terrorists open fire on civilians, causing a chaotic scene throughout the terminal. You see people run around desperately, and it's a jarring realization that this time, you are the monster. As the terrorists kill unarmed people, there's an unsaid expectation from you to do your part. Even though the level will advance without killing any civilians, most players still choose to do it because they want to play the part. However, when the mission ends, Makarov kills you, revealing that he knew Alan was an American spy. This ends up making you feel more horrible because you sold your soul for nothing. What makes this mission deeply disturbing is its graphic depiction of terrorism. It was a first-of-its-kind scene where players were allowed to actively participate in or witness the murder of innocent civilians. As you open fire, civilians scatter frantically, desperate to escape this horrific violence. The mission was so controversial that it was censored in Japan and Germany. If the players attempted to kill civilians, they would see the game over screen. The segment was completely removed from the Russian version of the game. Meanwhile, in the UK, it was the first ever Call of Duty to receive an 18+ rating. Players felt deeply conflicted about the mission. Even though it was just a game and the mission was optional, many questioned its moral implications. During its initial testing, some even refused to play this part as they felt deeply offended by it. No Russian crossed an ethical boundary in video game storytelling, as it could have dangerous implications. It could desensitize players to terrorist acts, as they were able to mercilessly kill innocent bystanders. The mission itself was also a potential trigger for those affected by actual terrorism and suffering from PTSD. Scene: Grand Theft Auto 5. In Grand Theft Auto 5, there is an interrogation scene so intense that it caused outrage among human rights groups. In a mission called By the Book, Trevor is tasked by the FBI to detain a guy they believe is a terrorist. Unlike traditional narratives that merely suggest terror, here you have to actively participate in it. The target, named Mr. K, is tied to a chair while Trevor electrocutes him with a car battery and jumper cables. We see Mr. K shaking as smoke rises from his body. There's also a heart monitor attached to him to track his cardiac activity. In case the heart stops, adrenaline can restart it. Things go as far as pulling out teeth, a detail so gruesome that it shouldn't be in a video game played by teens and kids. The scene is considered problematic due to various reasons. First and foremost, its graphic nature isn't appropriate for any player. We see Mr. K screaming and begging to stop as Trevor beats him. But the FBI agent is constantly pushing Trevor to go harder. Moreover, the scene feels way too dark to even be in GTA. While the game contains plenty of violence, it's typically presented with a comedic overtone. In the interrogation scene, all of that goes out the window as the player is made to subject an innocent man to extreme suffering. Another reason why it's considered controversial is because Trevor seemingly only abuses the poor guy because he likes it. After it's revealed that Mr. K is innocent, Trevor elaborates that using such brutal methods is a mean to exert power, not necessarily as a tool to extract information. This is an extremely harmful viewpoint, as it teaches young minds that they should enjoy tormenting people. Freedom from Terror, along with Amnesty International, condemned this graphic sequence 2 days after the game was released. Not only was the scene harrowing, but the game's commentary on state-sanctioned violence was also met with backlash. Curtis Benson's Apartment, LA Noire Polite Invitation. LA Noire Polite Invitation received a mature rating from the ESRB for violence, language, and nudity. However, there is one scene that is the most disturbing of all. As an LAPD investigator, Phelps' job is to search a businessman's apartment for evidence. Instead, what he finds is shocking and disturbing. The controversial moment happens when he discovers a naked 12-year-old girl in Benson's bed. When Phelps asks the girl about her age, she lies before finally revealing that she's nearly 13. Disgusted, he confronts Benson, who doesn't look ashamed at all. As Phelps is leaving, he tells the girl to get dressed and leave, but she defends him, saying he is kind and buys her nice things. The scene is so appalling because of its depiction of the brutal reality through the morally murky lens of 1940s film noir cinema. Benson's shameless behavior, while shocking, is not surprising. It's repulsive how he doesn't feel an ounce of guilt. What is more tragic is the girl's docile response as she has been stripped of her agency. The entire setup portrays the extent to which older men can go to exploit young girls. While uncomfortable, it also sheds light on the culture of grooming. We can clearly see it as wrong and depraved, but the girl isn't bothered because she has been coached to feel that way. This controversial scene fits within the game's overall theme of exposing the corruption in 1940s Los Angeles, but critics have questioned if there was any need for it at all. Level 6. The White Phosphorus Mission, Spec Ops: The Line. The White Phosphorus Mission in Spec Ops is one of the most morally challenging sequences in gaming history. In this pivotal scene, Captain Walker and his squad use white phosphorus against their enemies, or so they believed. What they discover next is devastating. As the team assesses the damage, they discover that they've killed civilians in the most brutal way possible. We see dead bodies of women and children with their flesh melted. The most haunting image shows the corpse of a mother still clutching her child, at which point it hits Walker what he has done. In front of the screen, the player is also registering the barbarity of what has just happened. The idea that the game just made you unarmed civilians is cruel. According to the Geneva Convention, the use of white phosphorus is restricted as it can penetrate through bone, causing severe burns and organ failure. So when Walker initially suggested using it to wipe out an enemy position, his squad mates strongly objected to the idea. Dismissing the protest, he goes on to bomb the enemy soldiers, a decision that would later haunt him. Players' reactions to this plotline were negative, but that is exactly what the developers intended. The scene was described as obscene and distasteful. Lead writer Walt Williams said that he intended to lure people in with a strong sense of familiarity before surprising them with this horrific sequence. Perhaps a major reason why this moment is so heart-wrenching is its authentic portrayal of war. Combat games are known for glorifying war, when in real life it is ruthless and barbaric. The White Phosphorus Mission shows us what the real cost of war is. The graphic image of civilian dead bodies is so unbearable and painful to watch that game testers reportedly had to leave the room and take breaks. Critics noted that the sequence made Call of Duty's controversial No Russian mission look pretty tame. Big Boss Quarantine, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, 2015. Few moments are as soul-crushing as the commander condemning his own soldiers to death. That is what happens in Metal Gear Solid 5, where you have to personally your men who have become infected. In the game, there is a parasite designed to kill anyone who speaks a certain language. These parasites were brought to the headquarters after a mission. When the infection spreads among the soldiers, it becomes a massive threat. In order to contain a potential outbreak, Big Boss must personally execute his infected men. This is the only way to protect everyone else on the base, but it leaves the player deeply traumatized. As Big Boss realizes what he must do, he moves swiftly, blocking any of his infected men from getting out in the open. In a devastating scenario, we see the soldiers struggling and confused as their commander shoots at them. He then moves through blood-stained hallways using a scanner to identify infected personnel. He then executes them one by one, even though it is the most difficult decision he has had to make. The mission became one of the most discussed moments in the game. With a single plotline, the developers were able to create a morally complex scenario that forced players to confront the human costs of war. Stick a Needle in Your Eye, Dead Space 2. Near the end of Dead Space 2, Isaac Clarke must extract crucial information stored in his brain in order to stop the convergence event. For that, he goes through a horrific medical procedure where players have to guide a needle directly into Isaac's eye. The interactive nature of the procedure makes it all quite unsettling. Players have to carefully move the needle into Isaac's pupil to access his brain, while his eyeball moves wildly due to anxiety. While Isaac is strapped in a machine, the camera zooms into his pupil. So does the needle. As soon as the needle penetrates his eye, it becomes impossible to keep watching. Once the information is extracted and the needle is out, Isaac closes his eyes with blood dripping from one side. The eye poke scene is widely considered one of the game's most graphic moments. The game's creative director also admitted to not being able to watch it the first time. Even during its development, the scene was so horrible that everyone in the room was still cringing after viewing it. To make the sequence even more stressful, you need to make sure the needle gets seamlessly into Isaac's pupil. If his eye movement is too erratic, you might miss it. The result is a gruesome death animation where the needle violently pierces through the eye and drives into his skull, killing him instantly. Level 7. Hortensia's Death. Phantasmagoria. Hortensia's death scene is one of the most notorious moments in the groundbreaking 1995 horror adventure game Phantasmagoria. The moment appears as a flashback sequence where Carno uses gardening tools to brutally murder his first wife, Hortensia. Adrian and her husband Don move into an old mansion previously owned by a magician named Carno. However, soon the couple starts experiencing something strange. As Adrian explores the place, she discovers that Carno was possessed by a demon that made him kill his wives. Now the same evil threatens Adrian as her husband has become possessed. When Adrian discovers Hortensia's remains in the greenhouse, it triggers a memory. In this flashback, we see Hortensia working on her plants. She's become fearful of Carno because of his changed behavior, and so she spent most of her time secluded in the greenhouse. As she works, Carno comes in and tries to embrace her. Hortensia rejects his advances, knowing very well that her husband is possessed. This angers Carno, and he aggressively throws Hortensia on the ground and sits on her chest. As we watch in horror, he forces soil into her mouth with a gardening shovel until she suffocates to death. The memory is so horrifying that Adrian runs out in panic, traumatized by what she's just seen. Also, the fact that Hortensia was named for her love of gardening is quite tragic. In the end, she meets her terrible fate in a place she cherished the most. The death scene shocked players with its disturbing realism, something that was unprecedented for its time. While Phantasmagoria wasn't the first full-motion video game, it pushed the technology further by using actors in the cutscenes as well as in 3D backgrounds. This made the entire sequence so much more impactful as we could see a real person being strangled to death. Hortensia's death was so gruesome that it was banned in countries like Australia and Singapore. Even more disturbing than the visual horror was the idea of a wife being killed by her husband. It was a terrifying violation of trust, despite the husband being possessed. It mirrored the horrors in the real world where such betrayals are committed without any supernatural intervention. The bathroom scene. Night Trap. The bathroom scene in Night Trap shows a woman in her nightclothes being attacked by 3 vampires. When it came out, the game sparked a lot of backlash. People were so repulsed that it led to the creation of the ESRB, a rating system to regulate video game content. In this controversial scene, we see a character named Lisa come into the bathroom dressed in her nightgown. As she fixes herself in front of the mirror, suddenly 3 augurs enter, cornering her. After restraining her, they begin to extract her blood using a drilling device. Your job here is to save Lisa from these vampires. If you fail, these creatures drag her struggling body through a secret passage. What made this scene controversial wasn't its extreme violence, but its context. A woman in nightwear being attacked in a private bathroom setting wasn't something that people were used to seeing on their screens. It only seemed to women when it could have been executed without the suggestive content. Moreover, the entire scenario seemed too real, which made it more scary. Attacks on women in bathrooms are actual incidents that have occurred in the real world. For many women, it hit too close to home. The backlash was severe, as many top retailers removed the game from shelves. Sega ended up withdrawing the game from the market after selling 250,000 copies. During the 1993 congressional hearing on video game violence, Senator Joseph Lieberman and others condemned the scene as shameful and disgusting. They claimed that the entire segment was quite dangerous because it could encourage people to trap and kill women. Aliens and action. South Park: The Stick of Truth. Imagine a scene so contentious that it's replaced by a textual description of its horrors. This is what happened when South Park: The Stick of Truth was released in 2014. The game included not one, but multiple extremely controversial sequences that were censored in several regions outside the United States. In the infamous alien probing sequence, aliens abduct you along with other male characters and take you to the UFO. As you are dragged through their ship, you see a strange sight. Men lying with their buttocks exposed are being probed by the aliens. Soon enough, you are also subjected to the same torment. The aliens pull down your pants and take out a phallic-shaped probe and insert it from behind. As the player, you are required to clench your sphincter to prevent the insertion. The implications here are horrific, while the entire interactive gameplay leaves you mortified. In another minigame, you go to the Unplanned Parenthood Clinic as part of a main quest. In an absurd turn of events, you're tasked with performing an action on a male character, Randy Marsh. Equipped with a probe and a vacuum, you must follow a set procedure which involves prompts for actions like drilling and suctioning. This scene is insanely uncomfortable, as you can hear Randy groan while you perform the mock. To make the situation even more bizarre, the entire procedure is done with 2 agents standing at the door watching. The scenes were considered explicit enough to be censored in multiple countries. To make the situation even more bizarre, the entire procedure is done with 2 agents standing at the door watching. The scenes were considered explicit enough to be censored in multiple countries. In European versions, they were replaced with images of Michelangelo's David and text descriptions, while Australian Classification Board refused to rate the game due to its depiction of sexual violence. The alien probing sequence was widely seen as atrocious and provocative. It almost made light of the situation, portraying it as comedic content rather than a traumatic experience. The same approach is mirrored in the action scene, which intentionally trivializes a sensitive issue by framing abortion in a ridiculous manner. The dismissive treatment of dark subjects is nothing short of revolting, making the game feel more like a dystopian nightmare than anything else. If you're curious about other disturbing gaming experiences, check out this Iceberg featuring the most disturbing video games.